This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I am here with a wonderful friend, Kimbrough, comedian, singer, musician, and owner of TK's Comedy Club in Addison, Texas, near Dallas.
Who knew? I had no idea, Ronnie. I had no idea.
Yeah? So, Kara with a K?
Ronnie with the Ron. How are you, dude?
I am great. You know what's cool about having you on the program is that we're a business program.
Yeah.
But having an opportunity to talk about the business of comedy and music and all that you've done. Uh-huh. What gives? You've done so much. Tell us about your journey.
Ronnie, it really depends on who you compare yourself to.
Okay.
If you want to look like a winner, you got to find someone that's a little bit more of a loser than you to look like you're really. I'm just playing. Have you heard this expression? I saw this in a movie. It's like this guy said, "Oh, you're my Mississippi."
Okay.
And he's like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Well, the only thing that stops Arkansas from being the worst state in the United States is Mississippi. So as long as you got a Mississippi around, you kind of look good." No, I'm making a joke. So, I mean, what do we take from the top? Like, mom didn't love me enough.
Well, you grew up in Houston near a bunch of really famous people. There are a couple of singers that grew up near you, from what I understand.
We never hung out. Never
you never hung out?
No. So technically, I was born in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
And then my mother and my mom was married 6 times. Let's just go. Let's just go there, shall we? So she had a hobby. She had a hobby, and then basically I moved around a lot in the Southeast and on the East Coast, and then I moved in with my dad when I was 10.
Okay.
In the Houston area, so Southeast between Galveston and Houston, and that's the white trash just flows deep, baby. Little white tea, honey.
Well, you were on so many programs. You were on America's Got Talent. You've traveled the country.
Yeah.
You do so much. And then play the guitar, right?
Yeah, play a little bit of jingly.
How'd you get started? Were you like that in high school?
I was really in high school just one of those kids that like wanted a lot of attention, tried to figure out how to get it. I wasn't hot enough to be the hot, popular chick. Turned out it was more funny than hot, and the funny thing worked. And kind of did the class clown thing. I got kicked out of class a lot. Like, I'd show up and make a joke, and they'd be like, "Get in the hallway, Kimbrough," and you're like, "What'd I do this time?"
I love it.
So, and then I just was always musical, always singing.
So that was not me, by the way, in high school. I was in the math club.
Oh, were you?
I was in the math club and the engineering club. I was that kind of guy.
Why did I act surprised? You totally look like you're in the math club. Ronnie, you look like you're good with numbers. I told you this. You've got rich vibes, Ronnie. I'm sorry. You can bleep that out, but you're giving me rich vibes.
Oh, my.
It looks very high credit score-ish.
I thought I was pretty cool in the math club, though, but I played a few sports.
You did?
Yeah, I did. And I was in junior achievement, so I started that business part at the end of my high school career.
Like, you were just like way focused. You already had a retirement plan in 8th grade.
I already had my 401k going.
Oh my gosh. And you have that vibe though, but it's fun. Like, it looks like you were highly focused and you really knew what you wanted.
I was definitely focused. I was excited to build a career. Mm-hmm. But I admire all of you guys that were just having fun and building a career at the same time. Sometimes I wish I could be a comedian. It just seems like a great place to be, which is why I wanted to have you on the program to talk about the business side of it. Like, what is that like?
We could get into it. I would not say I'm the expert, but I do own a comedy club. So there's definitely, I see it from a lot of different lenses now. When you first start comedy, you're at the lowest of the low, right? You're trying to find your voice. You're trying to get stage time. You're trying to figure out the game. And depending on which city that you start in, has its own little politics, its own little systems. I moved to Los Angeles like right out of high school.
Really?
And I was like, I'm going to be a star. And then I worked at Starbucks.
Now, were you surprised when you arrived? So I lived out in California, and when I took my family out to see the stars and the Hollywood sign, it wasn't what they expected to see. No,
it's dirty. Yeah. You better take a shower afterwards. My husband and I, later when we were living there, I would see families like touring the Walk of Fame. I was like, don't bring your kids here. This isn't a kid place. You don't bring your kids to the Walk of Fame. It's not a good look.
Right.
It's kind of grody.
So you arrived right after high school on your own.
Yeah.
Like you were 18, just landed in LA and you thought, LA, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here, and didn't know what I was doing. I had $300 by the time I got there. I had met up with some friends that I just met. We all wanted to go, obviously, get an apartment because I wasn't trying to be homeless per se.
Right.
But we found a studio. My husband is opening candy right next to me, and I'm gonna stab him so hard. TK.
I love it.
I'm just playing. I'm not playing.
It's good to have him in studio with us, though. And your husband, by the way, speaking of your husband, he's a comedian as well, TK.
Yeah, TK of TKs. I named it after him. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I thought this was something he always wanted, and we worked on it together. It took on a life of its own, but I always thought that TKs just sounded a little bit like more of a broader experience, not just a comedy club. And as you know, because you've been at our place several times.
It's a great place, by the way. It is by far. I've been to improv locations across the country and comedy clubs, and yours is neat. It's a lot of comedy clubs. They have the comedy club and they serve food.
Yeah.
You have a legitimate food establishment with a top chef, and then you have the comedy club in the building, but next to it.
Yeah.
And then you have a speakeasy. It is absolutely one of the coolest places.
It's so cool. So TK and I, when we were in LA, we were producing a lot of shows together. And we were doing a lot of stand-up, and what we found is that the guest experience seemed to be much higher when there was a better food offering.
Interesting.
And then also the ambiance. So if it was kind of a hole in the wall, but not a fun hole in the wall, really felt kind of grungy, people didn't want to stay afterwards and have a drink and hang out. They wanted to kind of bounce, or they were hungry. There was nothing to eat there. And some of the comedy clubs do it better than others when you look at the whole picture of hospitality. But TK and I want to do something flashy. We wanted it to be like this really immersive. You come in, you're visually stimulated. You've got a great meal, steakhouse experience.
What's with the balloons? You keep. I know. It's so full of energy.
Every day's a party, honey.
Balloons, and it's just a really neat. It's an upscale atmosphere, but you have that decoration that just makes it a neat, cool vibe.
We do so many private events, and then we do so many specialty birthdays, bachelorettes, 50th anniversaries, corporate events. So there's always some kind of themed decor up, also to go along with whatever season it is.
With a huge bar area, a big
the bar's
square
big.
Bar area that's right in the center of the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think one of my favorites is the deviled eggs.
Dude.
I know. One with the bacon on. Oh, you had me at bacon.
I did come up with that concept.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't come up with it, but I was like, hey, chef, can we do this? He's like, yes. Crispy deviled eggs.
Yes.
I didn't know a deviled egg could taste so good. We basically do a light fry with some panko crispiness. And then
did you bring some with you, by the way?
I'm
getting hungry now.
So I never knew a deviled egg could taste so good. So we've been doing stand-up, did the LA thing, produced a lot of shows, learned a lot about what keeps people there.
Nice.
What creates a really good customer-facing experience. So we approached it from a different business model than a traditional comedy club. Am I jumping around too much for you?
Oh, you're doing great.
Okay.
No, I love it. And you've had some really amazing talent. I know you don't remember all the names that come through
big ones.
your talent, but who are some of the guests that you have, the comedians?
We've had some really funny dudes in there. We've had Dove Davidoff. He is so funny. He starred in Crashing on HBO. He's a New York guy. He is so funny, hysterical. We've had Jeff Dye, who's blown up a lot, social media. He's selling out everywhere he goes.
Impressive.
We also have some really big headliners coming up. I don't know if I can mention them yet, can I? Oh, okay. May 17th, we have Craig Robinson from Daryl from The Office, Hot Tub Time Machine, Pineapple Express, Ghosted. This guy is a personal friend of TK's, and he is such a great guy, and he's graciously doing a one-nighter with us, our summer series kickoff party, as we launch a bunch of new menu items, kind of do a branding. Big fun, lots of sponsors, lots of vendors, lots of fun. So that's May 17th.
Now, I want to come back to your business because running a restaurant it's not easy.
No.
To be in that business and the margins, everyone tells me that's in the restaurant business are slim. But you have a great restaurant, so I want to come back to it. But tell me, how did you leave high school, go to LA?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? Where were you looking? How did you start building that network and getting on programs? It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, you go there with your hope and your faith, and and I love the Lord, and I'm like, God loves me, so He's going to make me famous and rich. But Jesus loves me. Like, why? Like, why am I not famous and rich? I mean, So doing LA was interesting. It's definitely a culture shock for anybody because you feel there's a party in the air. You feel a lot of possibility. You feel high levels of creativity.
There is a lot of energy there.
It's unlike anywhere else.
I agree with you.
But then you don't quite know how to jump in. So I just started off, a good friend of mine, we both worked at Starbucks. She signed me up for an open mic. And I was terrified. She didn't tell me. I thought we were just going to meet. And she signed me up. And she's like, Kara, I believe in you so much.
And were you a comedian at that point,
dabbled.
or were you just more music?
I was like the funny girl, and I had dabbled, and I'd always make people laugh, and I'd tried a few things, but this was Los Angeles. This wasn't like small town outside of Houston. So she tricked me, and she said, "Hey, meet me here." And then it was an open mic. She signed me up. I was like, "What did you do that for? I'm not ready." And she goes, "Kara, I believe in you so much. I'm going to go up in front of you, and I'm going to bomb on purpose, you look good." I was like, that's a good friend. So she got.
Are you still friends with her, by the way?
Well, she did move. We're still good friends. She moved, and she's a wonderful woman, but she moved to Atlanta. We don't still see each other. But we had a great friendship in LA for when we lived there. And but she got on stage and in trying to bomb. It was so cute and funny that everybody loved it.
Okay.
And so then she killed it, and everybody thought she was awesome. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks. I was like, how am I going to follow that? But I did get on stage. It went great. And, but I think the thing about stand-up is that, we glamorize everything. I mean, we always look at the highlight reel of anything, whether you're a business owner, you're a musician, if you're in the arts, if you're in tech, whatever. We always look at the payoff. But the journey is usually very, very, very tough. I mean, it is not for the weak.
Right.
That journey has changed a lot since social media. So I'd hate to say it has to happen this way, but when I was doing it, you did the open mic route, then you would get on some booked shows, and you would basically kind of crawl your way to higher visibility. And simultaneously, the catch is, in order to get great, you need stage time.
Okay.
You can only do so many classes. You can only do so many sitting down writing sessions, talking to your friends. You have to get in front of an audience a bazillion times.
Right.
The catch to that is you're still new. You're still developing. And so it's a struggle to get on good shows and to constantly get up, which is why I married a comedian who happened to produce shows. What do you know? So then I had a lot of stage time. It cost me a few things, but I'm still paying. No, I'm just joking.
How'd you meet this guy, then?
So this guy here, I met him. I was in Hollywood, and I do talk about this in my stand-up, but I'll do it not stand-up.
Right.
But basically,
you can do a stand-up.
I'll save it. Come to the live show. So I went to go see a friend of mine, and one of my gay buddies, he was like, Kara, there's some really hot dudes at this sports bar. And there's not a lot of sports bars in LA, not in Hollywood.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, Brian knows his stuff. Let me just go give a little check it out. So I walked in, and I was like, smells like heterosexual men. I was like, mama likey. So I walked in, and there was nowhere to sit. The guys were yelling at the screen. You could just see beads of testosterone just beating down and I was like, I like this. And so TK was there, and there was nowhere to sit. And TK was like, hey, would you like my seat? And he got up and let me sit in his seat. And I was like, what is this, a storybook movie? It's like, I can show you the world, shine a shimmering screen. And I was really chivalry's not dead. So we met that way. So we didn't meet doing stand-up, which was kind of good.
Yes.
We didn't meet in the business. We met as normal people.
Right.
And he was producing a lot of shows. He had a comedy club at the time. And I was like, okay, I'll pretend to like this guy for stage time. I just kept it going. So here we are today.
How many years later?
We've been together 15, right, babe?
Very
15,
cool.
Married 13.
Very cool.
Yeah,
It's
been awesome. It's been a trip.
So what was your first big gig then, would you consider, in LA?
I had some cool recognition, and it's all about building. It's interesting in LA. It's a showcase city. Right. So it was. I don't know how it's doing now. I go back and I dabble. It's a lot of fun, but I don't know. You could be on a nothing show out there or a high profile show, and you don't know who's going to see you. So you can have somebody see you and cast you in something. And that has happened to me. Like one of the first gigs that I got, it was a pilot for A&E. And I didn't have to audition. It was somebody called in a favor, said, hey, I really need a comedic actress with improv skills for this hidden camera show. And then a friend of ours reached out and said, hey, can I send you your stuff? I think you'd be great. And it shoots in like 3 days. Oh, wow. And I go, yeah, let's do it. So they got my stuff. Next thing you know, I'm flying to New York. I'd never been to New York. Right. I'd never been to the Big Apple. And these buildings is tall. So it was awesome. You know, it was my first time in New York. I was shooting a pilot with the cast was everybody from like the Groundlings, which is a very premier improv school. Right. They were all stand-ups, or they were improv, like Second City, and a lot of New York people.
I was going to ask you about Second City. I've been there. Great place.
Yeah. So I kind of felt like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? And these people were all so funny. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Wow. They're just like improv. I was like, okay. And the way I improv'd was just basically totally off of instinct. Like the way I use improv is different than like you would learn it in a class. Right. I use improv in a way to connect people. I use it in a way to loosen things up. Like, you know, crowd work is when you play with, you know, I do a ton of crowd work. I love it. It wakes people up and it connects people. So I went into this show and I'm around a bunch of really, really highly skilled improv actors and the whole 9 yards. And I was just so nervous, but I just would say, okay, Lord, give me that funny thing. Help me to just flow. Help me not to get stuck in my head. And anyway, we shot it and it was a lot of fun. And spoiler alert, didn't get picked up, but that's okay. I did get to go back to New York twice and film, and it was really fun and learned a lot. So that was one of the first gigs.
Were you bitten by the New York City bug as well? It's a different city than LA.
Different vibe, different frequency. So I really felt, again, I was there. I didn't pay for anything. I had a driver. I stayed in a nice hotel. And so it was a different experience. I didn't have to grind it out there. I have friends that are like grinding it out in LA and grinding it out in New York are not the same. They're a different hustle. Right. So I didn't get to experience that, thankfully. But I got kind of a zhuzh vibe, and I loved it. So if I got to go back and just not have to worry about cash and just get to do the fun stuff, I'm into it.
I love
it. But do I want to sweat my balls off on a subway with 4, bags trying to get to my next audition? No, I don't. I don't want to do that. You know.
Now, in one of your statements, you say, and you mentioned in here, that comedy is a way to connect people, uplift spirits, and bring joy to our community. Yeah. And I think that's such a profound statement about comedy that
I stole it.
But it helps. It creates an opportunity just to relax and to come down from the busy lives that we have of work and family obligations. And I agree with you.
So we use the word and the expression both in acting and just in real life is that it's called comic relief.
Right.
So you think about that. Comic relief. Right. Why does it bring relief? And I was talking to God about this. Yeah. I was like, oh man, it's interesting. And I feel like it's a form of grace.
Interesting.
I think that laughter can be, when the right spirit is behind it, is a form of grace because it kind of just massages you a little bit. Everybody gets to connect on something that they're like, I get that. That happens to me too. And I think it's just this warmth that God gives us. And I think of it in a pure form in that regard. Like, and I'm not talking like Christian comedy. I'm talking about the spirit behind it really bringing about a relief. It's a blessing from God. I think so.
I watched the documentary about Martha Stewart recently. I've been telling you.
Oh, yeah.
And she connected with Snoop Dogg. I was wondering how they got connected, but it was on a roast for Justin Bieber. And they said that she was so funny, Martha Stewart, and so raw that it built that relationship, that rapport, and it helped her to rebound. It was just kind of cool.
Well, she wasn't so untouchable,
right?
Made herself a little bit more like one of the everyday people. I'm sure she had phenomenal writers. Let's be honest.
Right? No, absolutely.
I've done comedy coaching for some people, and they've said, "Do you want to punch up their writing?" I go, "No, this is really good." I'm a little shocked. They go, "Oh, it should be. We hired 3 Comedy Central writers." So
I love it.
Trust me, she probably have great writers. But the fact that she said yes to it and she was in on the joke and like played ball. I mean, she's like, "Yeah, I'm one of you."
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, she's still Martha.
Yeah, she.
Which we want her to be. It's fun.
Now, how did you get on to America's Got Talent? I think you've been on a few times, right?
Well, it was 2 episodes. Okay. And one we won't even discuss.
Right.
Doing stand-up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I was just doing stand-up, and they scouted me out.
That is so cool.
And they were like, "We really want you to be on the show." And I was like, of course, very flattered, but I was concerned with the show being a good platform to do stand-up to win.
Interesting.
To win.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is winning, not even necessarily like the not winning necessarily the ultimate prize, but being able to be showcased in the best light.
Right.
It's a massive stage. It's a massive audience. And so much of what I do is very intimate.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, I'm going to be way removed. The audience is here. I was like, can I translate? Because they said, what you do here, because they saw my act several times. They came down and watched me several times.
Right.
We want you to do on stage. And I said, okay, well, then I'm going to need a few adjustments. And they were really cool about it at first. It was good. But I got cast on it. I didn't wait in line. It wasn't like you see in the...
Right.
It was a casting, and I was really grateful. I got a lot of work out of it. It was good. And learned a lot, and, it went viral, and I got a standing ovation. So it was just like a pretty epic moment.
Tell us about that moment in that event. Something about a hamburger, I remember.
Well, I girls gotta eat. What can I say? So yeah, I've always I had this new joke at the time where I positioned it where it was like, it's hard losing weight because temptation's everywhere. Right. It could just jump out everywhere, and I'd be like, you should be walking down the street, and then it's like I pull out a burger, and it just so happens I've done it in the past where I've pulled out a piece of pizza. I pulled out a tray.
Now, for the people not watching this, they're listening.
Out of my bra. What are you gonna do? You gotta use it for something.
Right.
I pulled out a tray of sushi we've done weird stuff. So that day I came in after they brought me in for basically what's called a closed audition. It's just you and the producers. Right. It's very cold. There's really no audience. Nothing's warm. And I wasn't even on stage. I was like in a banquet hotel room, and I was like, this is... Stand-up has to be tight. It's got to be close. Right. You got to feel it. It's got to be electric. It's creating an atmosphere. Right. So when you just kind of go in cold, you're kind of having to get... So I always treat a lot of my shows, and you can attest this, as I'm my own warm-up act. Like, as much as you'd love for the host or the featured act before you to, like, really kill it and bring the joy up, sometimes it's not there. Or sometimes it's not where you want it to be, which is how I developed how I do my intro and a lot of the crowd work, because I really want people to be like connected. So I go into this hotel that's very sterile, like a Holiday Inn style experience. And there's like 3 chairs, and they're like 10,000 feet away. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm like, thanks for having me. And I was like, I got to make this. I'm like, this ain't going to work. This ain't going to work. And I thought, you know what? It doesn't matter if I bomb. I'm either on the show or not. And there's only 3 people here. So I got really close to them.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. They were far. And I just walked up and did my set like this close to them.
You got in their space.
Of course.
Okay.
And then they loved it.
Okay.
And at that time, I think I had some Doritos, and I threw the Doritos at them, and they were like, this is great. I was hungry. I'm just playing. So it was good. It was really good. That process was good. It was a very unforgettable, cool experience. And I got to kind of see it from both sides, like winning and losing. Right.
But I think you told me that, and I forget the whole story, that you were preparing to go on, and then something happened with the person in front of you, and they called you suddenly to go on stage?
This is what I found out. So they will overbook the day. Okay. I don't know if it's a hard and fast rule, but they'll overbook the acts for filming, but no one's guaranteed they're going up. Okay.
Gotcha.
And which isn't entirely true. There are some pre-designated acts that they are set to film. Right. But there was one act that was like a balloon guy that a contortionist magician guy, and he like eats fire, that kind of guy. Right. We had something with a balloon or a knife, I don't know, but it got stuck in his nose.
Ouch.
Yeah, they had to call the ambulance.
Oh, God.
So and I felt bad for this dude. I don't know how bad it was, but it was so severe they had to call the ambulance. They had to clear the stage, and they said, we don't have time to reset the stage. They didn't even know if I was going to go up that night. Right. And I was really like totally not on their radar. I was just like an added on act. So they didn't know what to expect, which was in my benefit because nobody was managing what I was doing. They were like, oh, there's this comedian girl, throw her up.
Right.
She's just a comedian. And they said, Carrie, you're on stage. I was like, oh, I got to pee. They're like, no time. I was like, I got to brush my extensions. Like, no time. I was like, I got to tighten my Spanx. They're like, no time. And so I just took my sweat mustache, I threw it off, and I went running, boom, boom, boom. And the next thing I know, I was in, Terry Crews is in my face. There's 7 cameras, and they're like, how do you feel? I was like, bloated. They're like, are you nervous? I'm like, yeah, kind of. And anyway, so they were like, okay, you're on. So there wasn't a whole lot of time to get too in my head about it.
Right.
But I just said a big prayer. It's like, hey, Lord, let's have a good time. So then I just twirled on stage to the middle. I just twirled. I was like, we're not doing a normal walk. Anybody can walk to the stage, so whatever. So I just twirled to the center of the stage. And then it was, of course, Simon Cowell, Howie Mandel, and then we had Ariana... Gabrielle Union. Okay. And then Julianne Hough. What did I get? Not Ariana Grande. She wasn't around.
Oh, Julianne Hough. Okay.
Yeah. And but it was great. I mean, they were awesome. And the first episode, they loved me. Second one, whatever. No, just joking. They were fine. It was cool. It was well received. And so I just stayed in character. Like, I just knew that. So the way that the platform works of the show is it's kind of like a 90-second act.
Oh.
You have like 90 seconds, essentially. They might let you go further. They might cut you off, but you have 90 seconds. That is very, very, very short in stand-up. If you're trying to build if you're trying to build a story, you don't have a lot of time. You got a lot of beats you have to hit. You got to get a lot of laughs out pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So the strategy that I had was I'm going to do my personality, amp it up, stay a character in the interview process. So that is part of my act. And that became as funny as the actual act was playing with them, bantering with them. Yeah. I gave Simon a hard time about a bunch of stuff. We had a great time. And then they said, okay, we're doing it. I was like, oh, we're doing it. Start now. And so I did the act. Right. And then I did what I do. I got off stage. The cameras knew I was doing that. I got off stage. Yes. And, you can see that. I went to them and messed with them and got in their business and stole his drink, brought it back on stage.
You stole Simon's drink?
I stole his drink. I said, I'm feeling a little parched. Mama needs a little sipperoo. And I took it, and then I walked on stage with it. Went great, finished in the splits, did the whole thing, had a standing O.
You finished in the splits?
I sure did.
Okay.
Finished in the splits. And you know what I did that day? Dude, I cinched my corset so tight so I looked snatched, but then I did the splits, and I was like, I can't get up. I had to kind of roll myself up. Nobody knows that. Inside tip, keep it loose. But so I got up, I had the cup. As soon as I got off stage, tons of producers were in my face, and they were like, we need that cup right now. I was like, oh, okay. They're like, because you could sell this online and make $20,000 just off his cup. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, gosh. So it's not like they were going to take it right back to him at that point?
No, they just didn't want me to sell it and make money off of it. Isn't that funny?
That is interesting. The cup that Simon Cowell had. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's funny.
Go Simon.
So, and that went viral, right?
Pretty much, yeah. When you add it all up and where it went, it was shared a lot. Cool. And, it got a lot of recognition for me, and it was great exposure and opened up some doors, booked some other work. I got some big gigs out of it. And so, even though I didn't go super far with the show, it did a lot for me in a short period of time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest follow-up? You mentioned that you got some other gigs. What's most notable that came out of your appearance on the show?
Well, it wasn't like it launched anything massive. I mean, clearly I'm not like a household name. Right. Spoiler alert, not
but
yet.
There's so many comedians that do exceptionally well, and actors and actresses that do exceptionally well, but they're not, Tom Cruise kind of.
I had a manager at the time, and I started getting a lot of inquiries that I didn't have prior to do corporate events, to do specialty events.
That is so cool.
And I was like, oh, this is working. Like, even though, they were like, can we book her for this? Can we book her for that? It wasn't like, I'm not Dave Chappelle. It wasn't like every, day was like, but it was starting to fill up. It was filling up. It was pretty awesome too.
That is so neat.
Yeah.
Now, I know that a lot of even the big name comedians, you mentioned this earlier, that they go back to those small comedy clubs to refine new material.
Of course,
to prepare to reconnect with people.
Yeah.
Because I think once you get out of it for a while and you're on maybe a bigger stage, you just don't have that connection any longer. But what does that look like for those comedians, just being able to connect. And if anyone hadn't been to those small venues, let's say in LA,
yeah,
it's amazing the talent that you see come through. First of all, even some of the big names as they refine their material. But walk us through those people that hadn't been to an LA comedy club scene. What does it look like?
You know, LA's very interesting because you can have a hot, what's called just a comedy room.
Right.
Which is like, you may not even be at one of the top clubs. You could be like for example, my husband, when he was starting off, there was a place called, was it Miyagi's, honey? Amagi's. It was back in like the early 2000s, and it was like rivaling. How do you say the word? Rivaling.
Yes.
That night was rivaling a lot of the big clubs, and it had huge drop-ins.
Okay.
Louis C.K., Dane Cook was there all the time. You know, Chris Rock, people dropping in, and it was just a really fun rock and roll LA experience, and it had a raw feeling to it. So you could go to rooms that maybe hold you could go to the big clubs where, you know, there are a few hundred, right? 300, 400, maybe 500 seats, depending on which room.
Right.
But LA, I think, because it does kind of thrive on a little bit of that exclusivity,
right,
a little bit of a touch of the douche, as I like to say.
The Hollywood image,
come
right?
on, you know. There was this one room, and it was in the West Hollywood area. It was at Bar Lubitsch, and it was the Ryan and Ryan show. You remember that? This place you could maybe squeeze 50 people in there.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's it. And you would see Hannibal Buress. You'd see people on hit TV shows that you only know as actors doing stand-up. And everybody wanted on that show. Everybody did. And I remember I knew like the producer, I couldn't get on the show.
Right.
And I was like, what? Are you mad? But it was really hard to get on. And I had a few friends that did it. And they're like, yeah, I only get booked like once a year. So LA was about, get up as much as you can. You want to get into the clubs, which, is its own world, getting into the clubs. And then you just constantly want to be cultivating relationships and working on your act, working on your voice. And then when you do the road, that's totally different. The road is different, in different markets,
And what is the road?
The road's where a lot of people get paid.
Okay.
So you go to New York or LA.
Gotcha. Traveling on the road.
That's where you're traveling. So that's going to be different markets. It's going to be like more your South, your Midwest, all different markets where there are legitimate comedy clubs that are looking for talent, or there's specialty events, or there's the college market, the corporate market.
That's interesting.
But those all come with different parameters too.
So I just realized that we're already into this show. I'd love to talk to you on the next program about the different markets, how comedy changes by region of the country. Is LA different from New York and Chicago and Florida and Dallas? So I'd love to get your insight on it for that next aspiring comedian.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you this, one of my favorite shows to watch when it was out was The Last Comic Standing.
Oh, yeah,
I
it was
loved
good.
it. It was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so...
Awesome.
Appreciate you joining me on the program, Kara.
Well, thank you very much.
You're extremely gifted. Your restaurant is phenomenal. So I can't wait to have you back on the program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.